It clearly says sushi train, but it's a ship. So shouldn't it be sushi ship instead of sushi train? I ran out of coffee, so I ran to the store to buy some more, and I bought this. I don't know if this is going to be any good, but it was blue and very colorful, so it stood out, and it's, I think, Kona coffee? Well, it says Kauai coffee. Similar to Kona coffee, maybe? Let's give this a try. We're gonna cut right to the chase for today's vlog and look at our passage. It's day 175. So what's really important to note is that in a couple days we will be halfway done with the vlog. You know, like halfway, it's just crazy to think about that we've made it this far. And in a couple days I'll pull up some facts and statistics in terms of how far we've come in the last 100, it'll be like day 178, and yeah, we'll talk about that then. Sorry if you hear like really loud like banging noises from upstairs, it's just the kids playing in the loft. Everything is okay. Like I said, day 175, and today we are looking at 2 Kings chapter 12 and 13, as well as 2 Chronicles chapter 24. In our passage for today, it really is all about rebuilding the temple. Now when it comes to rebuilding the temple, I just naturally thought, like, what are some things that I have to fix or rebuild around the house? Now thankfully I don't have to undertake any major rebuilding projects in our house just yet, but there's always something to fix, whether it be something small, minuscule, or you know, something maybe I have to call someone else in to do, but there's always something that is broken that needs to be fixed in one way or another around the house, especially having two little boys. I love having the little guys. They're just a little rambunctious sometimes. When Joash becomes king in chapter 12, he's the one that initiates this rebuild of the temple. Up until this point, the temple had been ravaged due to previous kings and how the temple had been used to conduct the worship of other gods other than Yahweh. So he's rebuilding it, fixing it up so that it can be ready for proper worship. Sorry, it was Jehoash that rebuilt the temple, not Joash. And actually it wasn't a rebuild, it was just making repairs. I'm off today, I'm sorry. So Jehoash makes repairs of the temple, and it details all that information in chapter 12 and then in our passage in 2 Chronicles. But there was something else about today's reading that really caught my attention, and what happened was, remember back in chapter 12, Jehoiada, who was the priest, was it chapter 12? Back in chapter 11, Jehoiada, who was the priest, he made the covenant with all of Israel to overthrow the queen, basically, of Israel at the time and to establish Joash as king. But what we find in scripture is that when Jehoiada, the priest, dies, that Jehoash, who, wait, was it Jehoash? I think it's in, when Jehoiada dies, Joash, who became king as a result of Jehoiada, God using Jehoiada to establish him as king, it says that Joash at that point essentially no longer feared the Lord and no longer really followed God. And we see this so often that when a key spiritual figure passes on, that usually the people then no longer follow the Lord. And I think, so what happens is towards the end of our passage today in 2 Kings that Elisha actually dies. I wonder if the camera will pick up his crying. Don't worry, he's in a timeout. It's okay. You might be saying like, Greg, you need to go attend to your child. Don't worry, he's in timeout right now. It's fine. And it's interesting because after Elisha dies, you would think that for sure, you know, like the kingdom would just go down the toilet basically, but God actually gives victory to Israel over the Syrians after his death. And I think it's just a really neat picture for us that in spite of these men being gone who were key spiritual figures, that God was still working and moving in Israel. And God was still giving them the victory that he had promised to them. And in fact, when we read these passages, 2 Kings chapter 13, verse 23, we have to, like, it's a really beautiful verse because it says that God was gracious to the people because he remembered the covenant that he made with Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. Way back in history, God is remembering this covenant he made with them, and due to that promise, he's keeping, he's not wiping Israel off the face of the earth, he's keeping his people. So I think really for today, just a couple encouragements that we don't trust in man, that we don't look towards a person or a man as like for our spiritual growth or nourishment. And then secondly, this whole idea of the repairs that they made to the house, I don't know if this is a good thing to draw from this truth or not, but I just think, you know, that often we have to make spiritual repairs to our own house in the sense of just making sure that we are in a place where we are abiding with the Lord, where we are surrendering everything to him. And it's good to do this often, to examine our hearts and our minds and our entire lives and to ask ourselves, is everything in my life pointing towards God, making a big deal out of God, seeking to glorify him, or do I need to make some course corrections with certain aspects of my life? Okay, that is it for today. We'll catch you guys tomorrow.